This past season, we would see what is easily, on paper, the most confusing, if not straight up just ridiculous trade in NHL history. And I know it's cliche, but a team's success is built from the crease out. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. In 2018, Jordan Binnington would come out of nowhere and carry a last place St. Louis Blues team not just to the playoffs, but all the way to a Stanley Cup win.
Is it nerve-wracking to you? You're a flat liner, but it seems pretty exciting hockey.
Do I look nervous?
In 2019 and 2020, Vezina winner Andre Vasilevsky would help carry Tampa to back-to-back Stanley Cups, and maybe an even better example of Carey Price carrying a Montreal squad on his shoulders to the Stanley Cup Finals. And after drafting Marc Andre Fleury in the Vegas expansion draft, he was that guy, as the Flower was playing at an all-new level and cemented the Knights as not only just an expansion team joke. No, but as a serious cup contender. He was a leader in the locker room, a fan favorite, and played the best hockey in his entire career. As he would carry the Knights to the Stanley Cup Finals in their inaugural season, crazy, especially considering that many thought that Vegas was going to be a lottery team. And yet, it doesn't just stop there. This past season, Fleury would once again elevate to an all-new level and take home the Vezina Trophy for the best goalie in the entire NHL. Except, during the offseason, with cap issues, the Vegas Golden Knights would trade a goalie who just won the Vezina months prior for Mikko Räikkönen. I don't know, make the NHL and I'll know your name. Which was basically a nothing trade. And so on paper, from face value, is just absurd. Yes, he's getting a little bit older, but he also just played the best season in his entire career. In fact, this is the first time in NHL history, or perhaps even sports history, never has a player won a major award the season prior and just been traded for nothing. The disrespect to my man, the Flower. So with this trade in mind, in today's video, we're gonna go over the most confusing, if not straight up just ridiculous trades in NHL history. And has your team ever made just a completely confusing trade? Comment down below. I'd love to know. Also, glasses RTH in the house. I look super sophisticated now, don't I? See, dumb, but all of a sudden, businessman. And make sure to press subscribe for your weekly dose of hockey content. In the current day, when NHL teams are conducting a trade, they can only include players, player rights, salary retention, or draft picks. However, back in the day, NHL teams could make trades with other assets such as cash, which of course led to some absurd trades, like Wayne Gretzky being traded to the LA Kings in a deal that included $15 million in cash. I don't really know why it's worth it, considering that the Edmonton Oilers owner was a billionaire, but whatever. But what is easily one of the most confusing trades ever was Kris Draper, because after being drafted in the 3rd round by the Jets, Draper would have a tough time cracking the Jets roster. He'd play well in the minors, but not get much of a chance in the big leagues. And so, in a trade that really foreshadowed the demise of an entire franchise, as the Winnipeg Jets would become the Phoenix Coyotes just years later, the Winnipeg Jets, and I'm not joking, would trade Kris Draper for a single dollar. Like, excuse me? Because here's the thing, Kris Draper would become instrumental in the Red Wings' success, as he was a gritty, sandpaper player who scored important goals. He would shut down other top lines and was a rock in the bottom 6. And you know, just won 4 Stanley Cups and topped it off with a Frank J. Selke Award. And so you could easily make the argument that this is the greatest return on asset trade in NHL history. You can't even buy a small Timmy's coffee for $1. And the Red Wings bought a defensive forward of the year and a 4-time Stanley Cup champion for less than a small coffee. Except, somehow, this trade doesn't even come close to what is the most confusing trade in hockey history. Get out of here, Kris Draper. That title belongs to Tom Martin, aka Tom Bussey Martin. Because after being drafted by the Jets, also, wait, hold up, I literally just realized that 2 of the most absurd trades in hockey history were both Winnipeg Jets prospects. Like, what? Like, what? What are the odds of that? But after being drafted in the 4th round, Martin would opt to join the NCAA. And back in the 80s, this was a super bizarre choice, as basically 99% of all Canadian prospects played in the CHL, as this proved to be the best route to the NHL. And why, you ask? Well, Martin did this because he was drafted by Seattle in the WHL draft. And so he would state that he would only play for his hometown in Victoria if he were to join the WHL. And well, it would happen, as the then Victoria Cougars would trade them, and get this, a team bus for my man, Tom Bussey Martin. Hilarious, and this just reminds me of like semi-pro when they traded like a washing machine. Just crazy. Scott Stevens. Fans today will remember Stevens as being a bone-crushing defenseman, captain of the Devils, multi-time Stanley Cup winner, and one of the best defensemen in NHL history. However, how the Devils actually acquired him is just a fascinating story, because after being drafted 5th overall by the Washington Capitals, Scott Stevens quickly became the Caps' franchise defenseman, as he would have some absolutely absurd seasons. I mean, in 1 year, my man had 61 points as a shutdown defenseman. Yeah, not too shabby. However, he also had, and get this, 283 penalty minutes. Just hilarious. But in 1990, it would happen. Scott Stevens would sign an offer sheet with the St. Louis Blues. And well, the Washington Capitals would choose not to match it. Thus, they would owe Washington 4 first-round picks. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where everything went off the rails. Because around this time, the New Jersey Devils had just drafted Brendan Shanahan 2nd overall. And after spending 4 years in the organization, Shanahan would also sign an offer sheet, but with the St. Louis Blues, who had just offer sheeted Scott Stevens. Like, we are losing our mind today about Kotkaniemi, but can you imagine the St. Louis Blues today just offer sheeting everyone? Pettersson, Hughes, Kotkaniemi, sure. Because St. Louis had just signed Scott Stevens, they didn't even own the first-round picks required for this transaction. Thus, the Blues tried to be sly, and they're like, you know what? You guys can just take Curtis Joseph, Rob the Bod Brendamore, and 2 draft picks. However, the Devils were like, hell no. And the New Jersey Devils would launch a lawsuit against the St. Louis Blues, saying, how are you going to offer sheet my player when you just offer sheeted someone else with all those picks? And after going through arbitration, it was decided that the Blues can in fact have Brendan Shanahan, but they were literally forced to give the Devils their new captain in Scott Stevens. Meaning, this was basically a 1-for-1 trade for Stevens and Shanahan that occurred through a court system. And well, it didn't turn out too bad for the Devils, as Scott Stevens would be an absolute legend with Jersey, as he would be the backbone of the entire franchise and lead them to 3 Stanley Cups, whereas the Blues, who were trying to build around Scott Stevens, now had a star in Shanahan, but they couldn't do anything in the postseason. And then ironically enough, they would trade for Chris Pronger, who was like a replacement for Stevens, which also didn't work out, and then Shanahan would go to Detroit, where he would become an absolute legend. Next, we have the LA Kings. And during the 2013 NHL trade deadline, the LA Kings would look to acquire a veteran defenseman as a nice little cherry on top for a potential cup run, as they would trade 2 second-round picks to the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for Robin Regehr. And in a classic Buffalo Sabres fashion, they did the right thing, unloading Robin Regehr in his cap for 2 seconds. You did good, kid. You did good. But the very next trade deadline, they would trade those exact same picks they just acquired from LA back to LA, alongside of McNabb and Parker, for Delorier and Fashion. Except, Delorier and Fashion wouldn't develop into anything but minor league players, whereas LA would end up with Robin Regehr, who was huge in their 2014 Cup win. They got their 2 second-round picks back, and they also got McNabb, who developed into a solid top 4 shutdown defenseman. And Buffalo, they ended up with nothing. But somehow, this trade isn't more ridiculous than a Kevin Shattenkirk trade that took place back in 2017. Because after being shockingly acquired by the Capitals alongside a Phoenix Coldplay for Zach Sanford, Brad Malone, a 2017 first, and a 2019 conditional second, this trade will go down as one of the most unnecessarily intricate trades ever. And honestly, it's hilarious. Because with that conditional second, and get this, I guess I'll just read it. I'll put it on the screen. You can try to read it too, I guess. Shattenkirk can become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. If the Capitals re-sign him to a contract that includes the 2017-18 season, or if they advance to the 2017 Eastern Conference Final, and Shattenkirk plays in at least 50% of their playoff games in the first 2 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Blues will receive the Capitals' second-round pick in the 2019 NHL Draft. If Washington trades Shattenkirk on or before July 1st, the Blues will receive their next available 7th-round pick. But if the Capitals receive a draft pick in return for Shattenkirk that is a 4th-round pick or earlier, then instead of the Capitals' next available 7th-round pick, the Blues will receive the Capitals' next available draft pick 2 rounds later than the earliest draft pick they received by the Capitals for Shattenkirk. Meaning if they received a 1st for Shattenkirk, they would get a 3rd. And thank you AndrestiX for summarizing that nicely on Reddit, but this conditional draft pick is absurd. It's honestly more complicated than the entire Jack Eichel trade debacle that's currently going on. And all of this for a potential 2nd or 7th round pick. Like, just make it a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick and call it a deal.